Welcome back, Friday Night friends. I hope you have your tickets because we're all going on a train to Busan.
Choo choo. Wait a minute. Trains don't actually go choo choo. Where did that come from? That's not a thing anymore. Whatever.
No, that
Welcome aboard. Let's ride this train. This is Scary Movie Fright Night.
a new podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered.
Oh.
Okay. Now you have that recorded.
And we're back. Your train has arrived. Please make sure you take all your baggage with you as you debark the train. Welcome to the episode. We're talking about Train to Busan. In case no one caught it, the theme for this week was zombies, hence the movie Train to Busan. It was not Korean movies where we had to read subtitles, but that would also be fitting.
Oh, wait, I have to ask before we start. You did watch it in Korean, right? With English subtitles?
I did, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Me too.
I was trying to find the English one with Korean subtitles, but that does not exist. Just to test out my ability to read Korean, which is unfortunately not that great.
Next time.
Next time. So we're doing a little something special today. We've gotten some listener feedback, and some of our listeners love the content so much that they just want to go to the next episode and not watch the movie first. Some of our other listeners probably saw Train to Busan when it came out and didn't watch it again before listening, and so couldn't quite remember all the details. So what we're going to start doing from this episode forward is we're going to do a quick, super duper fast recap of the movie so that everyone remembers what happened, so that as we're talking about it, you'll be able to follow along as we talk in circles about what we thought about the movie.
It is crazy how quickly you forget. I was re-listening to the episodes that kicked off this season, and these were movies that we watched just a couple weeks ago, and I had already forgotten about all these things that had happened during the movies. So I think a little recap would be nice.
Yep. So I'm going to try it out. We're going to try to do it in the quickest time possible so that we can move on to what Sam thought. So here we go with our super duper quick recap. Sam, start the clap. No.
Start
Sam.
the clap. How about I start the clock? All right, you ready? The train is leaving the station.
Sam,
and 3,
start the clock.
2, 1, go.
The movie opens. We find out there's a leak in a nearby plant, and a deer turns into a zombie. Meanwhile, Sik-woo, the main protagonist, is a fund manager and too busy to spend time with his daughter on her birthday, so he finally agrees to take her to her mom's on a train to Busan. The next day, they board a train, and the last minute, a bit woman also gets on the train. She then transforms and bites people who bites people who bites people, and the train becomes full of zombies. Sik-woo wakes up and notices his daughter is gone because she went to the bathroom. He finds his daughter just in time to run away from all the zombies coming. Meanwhile, he meets a burly man, Sang-hwa, and his pregnant wife, Sung-gyung, and they don't get along at first, but that will pass. The train arrives at an abandoned station, but everyone turned into zombies, and so they have to run back and get on the train just as it leaves. Some make it, many do not, but the group is split up across multiple cars now. Sung-gyung, Suwon, and a homeless man are hiding in a bathroom, and Sik-woo and the beefy man need to transit multiple cars to the rescue. They fight, sneak, and strategize their way to rescue his wife and daughter and start heading to the compartment where all the rest of the survivors are, but they're being dumb humans and they're not going to let them in just in case they're bidden. And they're all led by Mr. Douchebag Man, Yong-suk. We'll talk more about him later. The protagonist team fight and sneak and get to the compartment, fight their way in, but in the process, a heart-wrenching moment, beefy man, Sung-hwa, sacrifices himself and tells Sik-woo take care of his wife and child. Once I stopped crying and pressed play again, the protagonist team moved past the dumb people who didn't want to let them in and go to another car. But good for them, because someone else lets all the zombies in and they eat all those dumb people except Mr. Doucheman, who's in the bathroom. The train tracks are blocked, so the train stops, and the conductor says he's going to move to another train. Everyone gets off and tries to make it to the train, but Douchebag Man comes out and starts sacrificing every loose-end, non-main character to save his own ass. I hate him. It's now down to Sik-woo, his daughter Suwon, and the pregnant woman, Sung-gyung, and they make it to the train, barely to escape a bazillion zombies chasing after them. But in the conductor's chair is the zombified Mr. Doucheman, who's finally died. Good riddance. But is going to get one last chance to take out the main characters. Sik-woo fights him off, but gets bitten. Oh, man, he made it so far. He locks Suwon and Seong-gong in the cockpit, and I sob as his daughter won't let go of him, and she's sobbing and crying and gripping his arm. She cries, he cries, we all cry. He finally gets his daughter to let go, then he goes to the back of the train, reminisces of her birth as he falls off the back to his death. The train arrives at the end of the line. They get off and start walking through a dark tunnel. On the other side are a bunch of survivors. They're looking out for zombies and almost shoot them. But Suwana's crying and singing the song that was meant for her father, letting them know she's not a zombie, and they all get rescued. The end.
Oh my gosh. That there was a near train wreck there, but you stayed on the tracks.
Well done on your reference.
Yeah, you I don't think you blinked the entire time you were giving
I
us
don't
the
think I
recap.
breathed. I don't think I breathed the entire time.
That was about 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Well done.
Okay.
Well done.
Well, I was going for 30 seconds. It didn't quite work out.
There's a lot. Listen, there was a lot in this movie to try and cram into just a short recap. And but yeah, nice. Well done.
Yeah.
I felt like
Well,
we were back on the Japanese Shinkansen, just flying through the countryside.
but in Korea.
But in Korea this time. Yeah.
Yeah. So all that said, now Sam remembers what happened. Hopefully we all do. So Sam, what are your thoughts? What do you think of the movie?
Um, I tell you what I liked about this movie is I liked that the characters were like fighters. You know,
Mhm.
they didn't come across as like weak, helpless victims, like barely, scraping by. I liked that they came together, they formed a little team, they were like really thriving. I mean, there was a lot of, there was a lot of close calls and we lost a lot of folks along the way. But
A lot of
I
folks.
got the sense that these are strong characters who are like willing to fight to survive, and I really liked that about the movie.
Mhm. To kind of give my big takeaway from the movie, I thought what really made this movie good, and so everyone's tracking, right? It got like a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think. So the world, I think, agreed that this was a good movie. But what made it good was honestly there were zombies, and we all love zombies. I mean, hopefully, I don't know about Team Sam, but Team Chris loves zombies. Um, but is the human conflict. And I think that that's probably every movie, no matter what, monster is coming after you, the human conflict is what makes the movie, right? And so uh to be a little math nerdy, I looked at this movie like a sine wave, right? Starts out calm, there's human conflict, him and his daughter, the kind of the standard, situation where the father's too busy for his daughter and they have some confliction between them and she's not happy, she doesn't want to be with him anymore, she wants to go to her mom's. And then it ramps up and there's zombie and people are getting eaten and people are getting chased. And then it goes back down and there's a little bit of a quiet time once the zombies are in the car and they, and they kind of um they have a moment to rest, and then there's some more character development across the characters. We learn more about Beefy Man and his pregnant wife, and we get invested in it gives you a moment to get invested in the characters, and then we're on to the next intense thing, and it's back up, and it's so it's like the sine wave throughout the movie. But the human conflict is what made it, right? You aren't
Yeah,
mad that the zombies are eating people, you're mad that asshole is like
yeah,
being a bad human, right? So it
yeah,
turns out that at the end of the day, like, yes, they were fighting zombies, but the worst part of the movie were the humans like fighting
yes,
each other.
yes. There was the scene there towards the end where they're in the train car, and this is like the last group of survivors. Well, in this, on the train, I guess. And on
Right.
one end of the train car, there's the zombies trying to get through the door, and
Hmm.
the main character and the Beefy Man. We've now named him Beefy Man.
Yeah, he's beefy.
They're trying to get the door closed. They're fighting off the
Yeah.
zombies on one end of the
Yeah.
car train car, and the man's daughter is standing in the middle watching this happen, and then on the other side of the train car are humans trying to prevent other humans from getting into the next car because they're just the humans in the other train car are paranoid that this other group that they're kind of reuniting with are potentially infected. And
Yeah.
in the group in the other train car, there's these two sisters. One of them is in the other train car, one of them is with this last group. There's
Right.
the girlfriend boyfriend. The girlfriend I think is with the forward train car, and then the boyfriend's like
Yep.
with this other group. So
The baseball
they're
player. Yeah.
clearly like, no, we want them to come in. So there's disagreement with the group and the forward train car. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that on opposite sides of this car, you have one conflict with zombies, one conflict with other humans. And to your point, it's like, which is worse? Like the
Yeah.
fact that we have the living fighting amongst themselves, or that we have, the guys who were trying to get away from the zombie. It's just that the dichotomy in that scene was really
Yeah.
powerful, I think.
Well, and yeah, and on one side, right, it's the humans like consciously making the decision to push other humans out, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's how we can affect each other because Mr. Douchebag Man, Yon Suk, he's the one that put the thoughts in those people's minds, right? Like he said, "Oh, they might be infected.
Oh,
Look at him,
yeah.
he's crazy, he's turning." And so
Right.
he used their fear, to allow them to become this mob of, people who were effectively another enemy set at that point, right?
Yeah.
But that's really interesting when you
I
talk about
didn't
that scene. I didn't necessarily catch it, but you're right. Like the way she's just looking back and forth, it's like, well, which one's worse? Which one do you
Yeah,
blame
which
more?
direction are we supposed to go in here? No matter where we go, we're losing, we're in danger. That's an interesting point you make about his influence, where maybe those people weren't necessarily against letting that other party into their train car, but then when he started pointing fingers
Yeah,
and saying they're crazy, they're infected, everybody was like quick to just jump on his train of thought, pun
yeah.
intended.
So
Um, and it does make me think about some of what you see in the culture wars in the US that are currently going on with the LGBTQ community, the trans community, where you have people standing up and pointing fingers, and we've seen it too with the immigrant community and other minorities and people um, who are disenfranchised, and having fingers pointed at them and saying, this is the enemy. Look at what they're grooming our children and all this, and then that influence unfortunately just spreads like a disease, like a zombie
well,
disease,
misinformation,
and
right? Like,
it's disinformation, yeah, and then it takes over. I didn't even think about that until you just pointed out the influence that the Korean businessman had on the other people in the car.
yeah.
But
I mean, and
what did
it
you?
goes into like social media algorithms, and like the seeing more of what you like, and confirmation bias, and
Ah, yeah,
and so like they're already scared, and he's the one with authority telling them, that these people are bad, don't listen to these people, and so these
right,
people are in a vulnerable situation, and they have no other authority to look at, so they look at what he's saying, and they get behind him because no one
yeah,
else is
yeah,
leading them. And so how this leader, this person who, whether we want to call him a leader, but who is being outspoken and who's being confident in what he says, and
yeah,
and they take it as fact.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's also interesting the father in this movie, and I didn't think about this either, but early on when he first meets Mr. Beefy Man, like he shuts him out, right? And
yeah,
and so it's he because of fear, right? And in the moment trying to save his daughter and stuff, he shuts the door on the guy and they end up getting
hmm,
in, but he kind of transitions from just like, all out for himself to someone who by the end, that's just not, he's run the spectrum from the beginning to the end of the movie.
yeah,
And then unfortunately doesn't make it, doesn't make it. But
yeah, yeah. No, I liked that about the movie, that we see this transition that the main character goes through, where in the beginning he's like, I'm protecting myself and my family. I'm doing what's right to look out for my own interests because I want to survive. There's that kind of survivalist mentality.
yeah,
Um, but then he transitions to where he starts to understand that, like, well, it doesn't have to just be me and my daughter. We're not in this alone. In fact, if our entire society is collapsing, we need to form a community of people who can work together to get through this. And so you see him starting to open up and change the way that he behaves, change the way that he thinks. And I really liked that about the main character.
yeah, I did. You definitely start the movie not really liking him,
Hmm.
because he buys his daughter another Wii, and she already has one in her bedroom, and it's like, how disconnected are you
Yeah.
that you don't even know, you're just buying, like he asked someone at work, what do kids like these days? And then so he buys
Yeah.
her this thing. And again, no investment, no thought of like, what should I get for my daughter? It's her birthday. Then he misses her recital, like he is so disconnected from his life. And then by the end, in his last moments, like he's thinking about his daughter's birth. And so his transformation as a character again and again, that goes back to what I said. My thought of this movie is the human conflict and the human journey is what made this a good movie. and we can talk at the end when we rate it about where it falls on like a scary movie.
Mhm.
It's obviously a horror movie because it's zombies and people are eating flesh. But but that's what made, I think, it a good movie.
Yeah. It stirred emotion in me. I didn't get super scared, but I mean, there was moments where I thought this movie was actually really sweet.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
went through my
agreed.
mind. Like, when the scene that you mentioned when the the dad is, he's been infected, so
Yeah,
he knows he cannot continue on this journey any longer, and he is on the last train. What is that part of the train called? Like the engine car or
the
whatever. I clearly don't know anything about trains.
the main train, the
The main train.
car. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so it's like
front car. I don't know.
the pregnant lady, which, by the way, I was a huge fan of the beefy man and the pregnant lady from the
Yes.
get-go. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, these people, I like the fact that he was like a fighter, and the fact that she was so kind and sweet to the daughter, given
Mhm.
the whole situation. I was like, "Oh, these people they're kind and they're good," and I like that they're here. I was really sad when, Mr. Beefy Man, who I should probably get the character's name and start calling him by his name, but when he
I like
got
Mr.
bit, I
Beefy
was
Man. No, but his name is Sanghua or Songhua.
Senghua.
Yeah.
Songhua. Yeah, when he got bit, I was sad. And then, so jumping ahead then to when the father is infected and he's having to he knows that he has minutes because we've seen
Yeah,
over and over
it's
again
fast.
how quick. Yeah, it's so fast. So he's telling his daughter, he's giving the pregnant lady, like, here's the instructions for the train, here's the break, like, you got to
Yep.
make it to Busan. And then he tells his daughter, you stay here. And she's like, wait, don't go. And he's like, I have to go right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's no time to sit and process. Like, I have to get as far away from my daughter as possible. That
Yep.
conflict. And then he goes to the back of the train. You hear her just screaming for her father.
Oh,
All
yeah.
this whole time, she's been wanting to go see her mother.
Yep.
She's like, ugh, my dad bought me another fucking Wii. Like, I want to go hang out with my mom. And now she's like, don't leave me, dad. Don't leave me, dad. And you hear her voice and you just see the shadow of him falling off of the train, and there's, the music kind of crescendos, and I was like, wow, this is really, I mean, it wasn't sweet. It was
Right,
it
right. But
was
it like pulled at your heartstrings.
pulling at my strings and my
Yeah.
heart springs. My springs and my strings were
Well,
just
from for those who haven't listened to the Midsommar episode that turned into a therapy session, the only way Sam survived that past relationship is by having very strong heart springs so he could
yeah,
bounce back.
that's
You
right.
see how they tied that in there? That was
That's
good.
good. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. Your heart springs are strong, uh, and so are your heartstrings.
Yeah, they're very
But
resilient.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually, this is the first movie where I've actually given people awards. So I gave the
Mm,
daughter the award for like she best actress. Like she like hands
mhm,
down her, just her emotion and the way that she acted, that like made that so heart wrenching. You know what I mean?
mhm.
His crying was fine, but like her just screaming and gripping and like the whole, and obviously like the filmography of it and the way they filmed it, but
Yeah.
so I gave her the award as like best acting performance in a zombie
How old
movie.
how old do you think she was when this was filmed? I was trying to I'm not good with ages of kids. I'm like, I don't know if
Let's
you're
see.
3 or 12. You're somewhere
If
in there, but
if I had to guess, I would say she's probably got to be like 9 or 10.
okay. I thought watching her performance that the character had a certain maturity to her, but also the actress's ability to perform. To your point, her performance was so good.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. And I don't really know one way or the other, and I haven't put a lot of thought into this. But if she were much older, like if she were a teenager, it wouldn't have gripped you so hard, right? But if she
Yeah,
were super young, then the younger you are, the less like maybe capable you are to really get that emotional tape at like 3 or 4 or 5.
right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Like her ability to, and I don't know how accurate that is, and we could probably find movies where that's not the case. But she won the award, best 10-year-old in a zombie movie. I also gave an award to Mr. Beefy Man.
Hmm.
He got the award for best badass of the movie. From the very get go, like this dude just like charges in and just whoops some zombie ass. Like he's running for the train. He's like sprinting it out. And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden he stops and you're like, oh no, he's not going to make it. No, he's going to pick up a police shield and whoop some zombie ass and still make it on the train.
Yeah, yeah.
And when the three of them, when the baseball player and the father and him, they're making their way through whatever 5 or 7 train cars. He's in the front, and he's just like, I don't give a shit. I'm making
Demolishing
it to my wife
zombies.
and daughter. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, actually,
Um,
that's one of the ways in which the movie defied my expectations is when we first meet his character, he's, waiting outside the bathroom for his wife, and the little girl comes in, and she's, like, knocking on the bathroom door, and he's like, "No,
yeah.
you gotta wait." And, he's, like, this big burly guy, and the assumption that I was making is I was like, "Oh, this guy's gonna turn out to be a jerk." He's,
Right.
like,
They
telling this
make him
poor
out to
little
be,
girl. Yeah.
yeah,
He's
it's
like,
like
"You
he's
gotta
like,
wait."
I'm next. I'm next
Yeah,
in
yeah.
line. That's what, well,
Uh
that's what you think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then it turns out that he is super kind. Like, he calls out the main character for shutting the door in his and his wife's face, but then he lets it go. Like, there's no physical confrontation or anything, and then he ends up being really kind to the daughter and helping the main character out, and so, he defied my expectations there. I was jumping to conclusions when we first met him, and then he was different than I thought he was gonna be.
Yeah. He was probably one of my favorite characters. He
Yeah.
was just really, I mean, I think all they did a really good job, I think, with all the main characters, making them compelling. The baseball kid, and the young girl,
Mm,
they didn't show up in my quick synopsis because my super duper quick recap, because I also was trying to cut back on time. But there were some other compelling actors or characters, like the sisters was a compelling part, but they're kind of like secondary main characters, right? I
yeah,
think the real main characters were, Beefy Man, his wife, unborn child, and father daughter, right? They were kind of the ones that really, I think, that we were connected to.
yeah.
Going back to what you were saying about heartstrings, I noted the saddest part of the movie 3 times as I was watching it, and then at the end I was like, well, there aren't 3 saddest parts of the movie, but there were 3 times that you're just like that. I felt like 3 notable heartstring moments.
Okay. Wait,
Again,
let
in
me
the
see if
lower
I
end of
can
the sine wave, from like
let me think.
top of the sine wave, super intense, bottom of the sine wave, I need to stop crying. Um,
Did you cry while you were watching it?
I don't ever cry.
Oh, you're not a crier.
No, I mean, I know I definitely teared up. Like, no, I got
I
choked
teared up.
up. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. 100%. I was lying about that. I don't ever cry thing. I cry myself to sleep every
Oh.
night. Just kidding. I only cry myself to sleep when I re-listen to our bad episodes, which don't exist anyway.
I was about to say, which
Yeah,
episodes are those,
yeah,
Chris?
the ones we didn't release. Um, no, saddest part of the movie, number one for me, is at the end, right when he has to say goodbye to his daughter and she's gripping his
Mm,
sleeve. That one I think I ranked number one.
mhm.
Close, close second is when Beefcake Man tells
Ugh,
Sequu to go save his wife, and then
yeah.
on top of it, he's like, go take care of her, go save her, and then he turns around right before he dies and tells her the name of like names their unborn child, right?
Oh,
And you're
yes,
just like,
which
oh my god, yeah, and so
yeah,
those 2 moments are pretty close.
yeah,
And then the third one that was just so unfortunate, and I think it's because you're dealing with children and unborn children, and then the last one is dealing with these elderly sisters, right? Like who are split apart, thought the other one was dead. One of them knew the other one was alive, um, and then the one she looks up and sees her sister and realizes, "Oh my
mhm,
god, she's here." But then right
mhm,
behind her comes a zombie and takes her out. And it's just like
mhm,
so like, they're older people, all they have are each other at this point. Um and then but that leads directly into the old woman. She's like, "Screw this. Like you guys suck." And she opens the door and just lets the zombies flood in and take out,
yeah,
the misinformed people.
yeah,
And even
yeah,
then douchebag man doesn't get eaten. I was mad.
yeah, yeah, he made it out. Yeah, I was kinda celebrating a little bit when, when the old lady sister went and opened the
Yeah.
door. I was like, "You guys are gonna get what's coming to ya."
Yep. But
Yeah,
and that goes back to show you though, right? And I don't know if there was this level of thought into it, but even then, the people that suffered weren't even the ones that started it. It was all the people that were following the misguidingly following this guy who was just hateful and all for himself and greedy, but he still survived like he
yeah,
does, right? And then after that, he literally throwing people at zombies trying to get to the train, and
yeah,
then the conductor tries to help him, and he throws the conductor, and like I'm just like, this guy is the worst.
yeah.
The
I think
worst.
for me, it was a big lesson on the idea of survival in that,
Yeah.
like, I think your intuition, your gut tells you, you got to look out for number one. You got to take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to take care of you. You have to fend for yourself. But that mentality, for at least for that character, didn't matter. You know, he was like, I'll throw somebody else to the zombies so I can get through. But in the end, he still, you know, didn't make it. So it's like,
Yep.
isn't it better to band together with other people and create a team, you know, to survive together with a little community
Yep.
than, you know, just fending for yourself?
Yeah. Well, and if you're fending for yourself and only yourself, then no one else has your back, right?
Right.
Um, and also, I mean, and this is, we could talk about this probably for days and days and days. But we only have one short podcast. But like it's the human problem of it's all about me, but communities band together, states band together, countries band together, cultures band together. But even then, there's infighting within it, right? We talked going back to the High Life episode of the idea of being in space and looking back
Mm.
at Earth as one little tiny piece of this whole universe.
Hmm.
Yet somehow we can't figure out how to get along. And that to be said, people do it, right? People figure out how to get along, and that's not. I'm not trying to paint the whole human race with a paintbrush, um, but obviously, like that covers a vast amount of people that won't look past, just be a good human.
Yeah.
Like yeah, there's differences, but we don't have to be unkind. We don't have to, throw people under the train. Just get it, like it was thrown under a bus.
Yes.
Kind of,
I get
yeah.
it.
Anyway, uh, thanks. I thought I might have missed the train on that one. Um,
Oh, there we go.
oh, yeah. No, I'm trying too hard. But anyway, you get the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was
I didn't
definitely it was a good case study in humanity, I think.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of these scary movies are really challenging. They're philosophical. It makes me
Yeah.
think about human interaction.
I think that's the more recent the scary movie, the more it goes into like existential crisis. What do people do? When especially on like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah,
That's always going to kind of be the case. Over
yeah,
700 billion seasons of The Walking Dead, the biggest conflicts were human on human conflict in the
yeah,
latter seasons.
yeah.
The zombies are no
Totally.
longer the problem. They're just a something that you deal with, but it's the human piece that makes it difficult.
Yeah. Well, I was reading about the history of zombie movies a
Hmm.
little bit, and
Yeah.
there were some examples of how scary movies, zombie movies in particular, but this probably applies outside of just zombies. But how they reflect like the conflicts, the social conflicts, the cultural conflicts of the time, like going back to the 60s and the 70s. And, there was one example that was given where the zombies, they're reanimated, they become zombies due to radiation from like a spacecraft coming back from Venus or something. And this was during like the space race era and the Cold War. And so then
Yeah.
other examples of well, I can't think of any other examples, but whatever. Like how the movie reflects like what's actually happening culturally and like what's going on, in our society. That was kind of cool.
That is interesting. I talking about history of zombies, and I don't know if this is way less deep than what you're saying, but I noticed that back in the day, I feel like, and I have nothing to actually, I've done no research to back this up, but I think that back in the day, zombies were all about eating brains,
Uh huh.
but now they're all about eating flesh. So I think that that's interesting
Oh,
how, like there's a lot of dietary trends that go throughout the our culture. And so, sometimes my wife was vegan for 10 years and she shifted what she wanted to eat. There's vegetarians, there's people that eat keto, there's people that eat paleo, right? Pescatarian. And so it's interesting to see how zombies have transitioned their dietary preferences from brains to flesh over this time. I wish I don't really have a good understanding as to why. Maybe it's like, maybe flesh is more nutrient dense. It allows them to not decay quite as fast. But anyway,
hmm.
interesting thought.
I did a little bit of research on different zombie types, but I want to hold that. I'm going to come back to that though because I want to finish a couple of reactions about the movie before we deviate into zombie research. There was two other things I wanted to point out. One is the did you catch what song the girl was singing at her recital and then
Yes.
at the end of the movie?
I didn't catch it during the recital, but at the end, I was like, "Oh, aloha oi." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is well, so okay, so Chris and I live in Hawaii, so it's kind of cool hearing. Wait, was she singing in Korean or in Hawaiian? Was she singing like the original lyrics to the song?
She was singing it in Korean. Uh,
Okay.
but I think aloha oi, right, is Hawaiian language, so it's like,
Yeah.
so the words translate the same. because they're
Yeah,
Hawaiian words, I
okay.
think. So I think that that's why they.
Got it. Okay. Well, that was just really cool to hear because it's a lovely song, and we live here. But then the other thing that stood out to me is that the lack of guns throughout the movie. It wasn't until
That
the
is
very
actually,
final scene
yeah,
when the military, the survivors are like, they're just scoping for any zombies that are coming along, and so you see his rifle in that final scene. Until that point, I don't think we see a gun at all the entire movie.
that's a really good point. Especially, I feel like that's unique for a zombie movie in general. I think.
When you compare that to The Last of Us, which was such
Yeah.
a great series, and I know you played the game, right? Zach played the game.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that entire show, like every character has multiple guns.
Yep.
Ellie, the 12-year-old, has, she's carried a gun the entire movie. So, obviously for survival, you use every weapon imaginable. So
Right.
I think part of it's just like just the cultural differences between, living in the US and then watching, foreign films from other
Yeah.
places.
Well,
They used there were other things that they had at their disposal. They used their fists. They found a shield. The
it's also
baseball
worth
team
noting
was
that they.
using baseball bats, and yeah,
It's also worth noting though, right? Like that's true. However, they were stuck on a train, right? So all the military people that were turned to zombies all had guns. We just didn't see that fight. We didn't see the fights in the city with the military and the zombies. We saw people stuck on a train, and all they had at their disposable was disposable. All they had at their disposal was what was on the train.
yeah.
So we don't know what that would look like in a city. I mean, we can assume that you know. Hmm?
Yeah, like even in Evil Dead Rise. So they're in the city, right? They're in LA, but there's
Yeah,
the guy in the apartment building with his shotgun. Like,
true. But he's not on public transportation.
well, that's true.
He's in his home. But
Yeah.
you're right. You're right. Like
I mean,
you're
it makes total
I think
sense.
yeah, I think you're not wrong that there is less of that imagery in the movie itself, being that it's
Yeah.
made in a different country. Um, I would be curious what that movie looked like if they made it in the U.S. where people were stuck on a train. Do they immediately go towards someone having some sort of firearm? But I think that's
Yeah.
also what made it kind of an adventure is that they couldn't go make weapons. They couldn't even get spears. They couldn't go to like buy knives, right? They just had whatever they could find.
They just had
Tape
to
to
fight.
protect their arm and baseball bats from the baseball team.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny that you mentioned if this had been made in the US, I think there was an American remake that was planned. There was a studio in the US that obtained rights to remake an American version of this movie. There was
Oh,
a
interesting.
title was it was going to be The Last Train to New York, and it was scheduled to be released this year, but Warner Brothers removed the film from their release schedule because there was another film that took its original release date, and that film was Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, interesting. They were
So,
gonna do
I guess they ended up not making it.
well, and I feel like they could make it, but people in the US know Train to Busan, right? So I think that when you talk about foreign horror movies, right, like The Ring, now The Ring is US made, but it's based off of, The Grudge was
A
too, which you
Japanese
didn't watch
one.
because you didn't pick it. Anyway, but they're taken from movies in Japan, but they're not big worldwide known movies. I feel like, especially now with streaming services and such, Train to Busan, I mean, it's easily available. I knew what it was when it
Yeah,
came out. I'd seen previews for it. So remaking it, you would have to do, in my opinion, you would have to do a lot to make me really be like, oh, we did an American version. It's going to
yeah,
be, is it worth even watching? Because it's
yeah.
the same story,
I kinda feel the same way.
hypothetically.
It's the same story, but just with more guns.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably true.
I mean, that's when I read that little piece of trivia, I was like, well, first of all, train travel is just much less popular in the US. It's just
That's
not
true.
something
That's
people
true.
do.
I don't
I
even
don't
know
know
where
if
you get on a train here.
I don't know if I'd wanna see a US remake of Train to Busan because I like Train to Busan the way that it was, you know?
What you do is you make a movie like Speed, where everyone's stuck on a bus and they have to go 55 miles an hour, and there's a zombie
The
apocalypse.
zombies, like, can't keep up. They're just, like, chasing them down the
Yeah.
highway.
And if they get
That
off the bus, it explodes and they turn to zombies,
Do you remember the scene in the movie where they all grab onto the train and they create, like, this blanket of
yeah,
zombies being
which was kind of weird. Well, it was only weird because the actors, like, would dive and grab on to the other zombies, but, like, how did they know to dive and grab on? Obviously, that's the only way they can make that effect actually work, right?
Yeah.
But it was kinda interesting. It was like a cape. They were, like, dragging a cape behind
It
them.
was a
Cape of
zombie cape.
zombie cape. Yeah.
Yeah, very
Which
nice.
is actually it leads to me to one of the other interesting points, which if this is in your zombie research, then you can halt me at any point. But running zombies versus walking zombies, that's a kind of a big difference, right?
Oh,
There's lots of
okay.
movies where zombies, because they're kind of mindless creatures, they only smell depending on which dietary restriction they're under. They either smell brains or they smell flesh, or they see flesh or they whatever. But in this one, I think that zombie movies where they run, it makes it so much creepier. It doesn't mean that there's not gonna be a cult following for The Walking Dead or, like, Old Night of the Living Dead where they just like, where the fear is there's so many of them that you can't stop them. It's like the horde
Mm,
that gets you. The one zombie doesn't get you. It's the 1,000 zombies coming at you
climbing over
that
each other.
yeah, and just busting through glass because there's a bazillion of them. But when zombies can run, that shit's like you're dead. We're all
Yeah.
dying.
I agree. I think that's what creates the intensity is the speed. The speed at which you get infected and turn into a zombie, the speed at
Yeah,
which like I mean they just can't get away. They can't get a moment to breathe until they figure out the point that if the zombies can't see you, there was like the dinosaur effect. Like okay, if we don't move, they can't see or whatever. If they can't
right.
see us, they don't freak out.
Yeah,
So that was kind of
yeah.
cool. I have a hypothetical question for you.
Okay.
Do you remember the scene where I think the girlfriend had been infected, and we see her like kind of slowly turning, and the boyfriend is like cradling her,
Mhm.
in despair as
Yeah,
she's slowly turning into a zombie. And then the last moment is we see her like
biting him.
completely turn and then bite him. Yeah,
Yeah.
Zach didn't watch the entire movie with me,
What
but
a jerk.
he was in the room when that scene was playing.
Okay.
He looked up and he was like, "Well, that was dumb. Why didn't he run away while he had while he had the chance?" I was like, maybe he just wanted to enjoy, the final moments before maybe in his mind the best thing to do was to just spend a lifetime as a zombie with his girlfriend. I mean, that's what I would do if you got
Yeah,
infected.
yeah.
I would just let you bite me. So here's my question for you. If Shelly, your wife, were to be infected, would you let her bite you or would you run for the hills?
Okay. So first of all, so our listeners are tracking. She's logged in as a producer right now, and she can hear everything we're saying. And of course, this is the first time she's logged in to do this. So thanks, Sam, for setting this one
there
up.
there's a right
Also,
answer.
there is a right answer. But what I will do is I will go down the thought rabbit hole with this one to debunk your thought process before I answer this.
Okay, perfect.
Because you say, so Zach says, that's dumb. Why wouldn't he do this? And then you countered with, well, maybe he's thinking this. I think all of that assumes that in that moment of despair, anyone is allowed to make any sort of conscious thought. In that
Oh,
moment, he is so like he's in such despair. He is so heartbroken. He is
yeah,
so upset that the one person he had, and it kind of goes back to these people are on a train, and the one person he had is gone. It's like the
yeah.
sister did the same thing. Like the sister opened the door and she gave herself. She's like, why am I even doing
I have
this?
nothing else to
If
live
this is
for.
all I have is a bunch of humans that suck. And so in that moment, he is so upset that he's probably not even clear-headed enough to say, "Oh man, I should probably just get rid of her." Like he's trying to comfort her and like and so I've listened to a bunch of true crime podcasts. They talk about like 911 calls, like when people find families murdered or find some sort
Oof.
of scene, and
Yeah,
and they try to analyze their reaction and their tone of voice and how upset they were. But like, there's no real formula on how a human is going to react in that situation. Some
right, right.
people are going to be hysterical. What my wife, to circle back, well, one thing that I learned about her that most people don't know is that in panic situations, she goes robotic serial killer level of calm. One time I
Oh,
like had this like crazy issue. I needed to go to the hospital and I was in a bunch of pain. And in that moment, we weren't married at the time. In that moment, she turns like stone cold calm. And in my mind, I'm just like, she doesn't understand how much pain I'm in. I need to go to the hospital. But really, she's turned stone cold. Like, and so in those situations, like she would probably be holding me and go stone cold calm, and then be like, I need to let him go and walk away
Yeah, yeah,
because
we
he
gotta.
is gonna bite me. And she would be rational. And I probably would be I would have nothing to live for anymore because you would have already had Zach bite you, so I would have no friends. And so you know what? I wouldn't even wait till she bit me. I would just put my hand in her mouth and get it over with so that we could just cuddle until we got up and bit
Oh,
everyone else. Yeah. So you see how
oh.
A, I won brownie points, but B, I debunked your whole thought process because we don't really actually know what people would do. But C, I turned it back around and said that she would probably uh no, I don't think she would leave. She would be pretty sad. She would
It's not
probably
well,
what she would probably do is she would probably lock me in a cage so she could keep me around. But she would be smart enough to like not come in contact with me.
that's good.
Maybe
That's
she'd keep
good.
my head or
Lock you in a
something. I don't know.
cage, turn off the
Yeah.
lights so that you can't see and you don't freak out, but
Oh,
just
yep.
maybe kinda occasionally feed you some human flesh.
What happens if you touch the zombies when they can't see? Like, can you cuddle with them if it's dark?
I doubt it.
Hmm.
I don't I think
Relationship questions that we'll have to see in the Train to Busan 2. How to cuddle with a
zombie
zombie.
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if Zach got infected, I'd probably try to make it sexual. I'd be like, "Bite me here." Okay, that was my little
Yep.
hypothetical. He's gonna be so embarrassed when he hears this, but that's how it goes. So let's see. Was there any good trivia from this movie? There was. So the beefy character.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Beefy McBeef man.
Beefy
No,
McBeef Man. The
no,
actor
his name is
is
Songhua. Songhua
Songhua.
is his
The
character's name.
actor's name is Ma Dong Suk, or he also goes by Don Lee.
Hmm.
He played Gilgamesh in the Eternals.
He did.
Marvel
That's where I've seen
connection.
him. I saw his face. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, he was so familiar, and I was like, What Korean movies have I seen that I would recognize him?" Turns out he like lived in Ohio, and
Hmm.
what after I think the Eternals would have been after Train to Busan, so
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I guess he
A
got his
couple years.
start playing in Korean movies, and then had a big breakout with the Eternals. So
Okay.
the other fun connection, I love playing this game of trying to figure out what people were in, and I didn't figure this out. I had to look it up. But the main character played by Gong Yu
Hmm.
he had a brief cameo in Squid Game. Did you watch
Oh,
Squid Game?
I did. And it's funny when you were talking about what people were in, I was like, I wonder if any of these people were in Squid Game. And I only say that
Yeah,
because it's another really big, famous, obviously, Korean show. I
yeah.
did watch
So
Squid Game. It was good.
I have to admit, I didn't know this actor, although I'm glad that I know him now. He is quite nice to look at, and I guess he must be a big star in Korea,
Interesting.
because I was reading about the cameo in Squid Game, and I guess people knew that he was in it and were thinking that he would have more of a role, or like the cameo would have more to it. But he was the guy in the train station at the beginning who basically recruits the
Oh,
player. They play a little
yeah.
game. There was like
That
the
makes
slap
sense.
game.
I
Yeah,
can see it now. I can see
that
it
was
now.
him.
Yeah.
That was him.
That makes sense.
So those are my little trivia connections to
He must have got
other
that
roles.
job after he fell off the train and turned back into a human.
Or
Oh, wait, they're not connected. Yeah. Okay, my bad. So what else you got, Sam?
so, have you ever heard that the US has like a response plan for if there was a real zombie apocalypse?
Thank God. I've always wondered about this.
Okay, so I found this online. It is if you just Google like zombie response plan or something, there's a
Mhm.
ConOp or ConPlan 8888. It's the counter zombie dominance in the US Department of Defense Strategic Command document that lays out our plan for how to respond to a zombie apocalypse.
Perfect.
I don't
Just
think it's real. I think
FYI, back when I was a big fan of Walking Dead when it was in the first few seasons, there was a time when I found myself stocking up on like machetes and stuff because I was like, I need to be prepared
just in case.
just in case. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I like it. You're prepared. Well, I like that you're stocking up with multiple machetes, so that you can
Well,
hand
yeah.
them out to your friends when you build your little team of your little
Oh,
combat
right.
team.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was like, I need a bow and arrow because I'm thinking ahead, right? Because
Oh.
guns, like bullets run out, and I'm
Yep.
not going to be making my own stuff. I need to learn how to make arrows.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Well,
DoD response
would you
plan.
recruit me to be on your zombie apocalypse combat team?
Well, I of course would because we're on an island and I need as many people as I can get. I mean, no, of course I would because you would be a good warrior.
What's a this is such nonsense, but what's another term for team that starts with a K? Can you think of there's a term, but it's not a
Collaboration,
good term. Uh,
compilation. Are you trying to come up with an
mm,
acronym?
yes, zombie apocalypse combat, and I need a K, and then it will spell
No,
Zach.
that's dumb. That's dumb.
Okay, don't fire me
Why
from the
why
show.
don't you do why don't you do Sam and you could just be like situational apocalypse
Machetes.
machetes. Yeah.
We'll workshop it. Please don't fire me. I'm doing the best I can here. Okay, wait. Okay, so coming back to the response plan, there is a
hmm
whole section. This thing is like 31 pages. We can't go through all of it, but there is a section that details out all the different types of zombies that we should anticipate. And I thought this was
Okay.
fascinating about. I mean, you touched on this already. You know, there's brain eating zombies, there's flesh eating zombies, there's some zombies that walk, some that run, some that can't see in the dark. So I just wanted to share some of these different zombie categories with you and see what you think about these.
Okay.
So there's like 6 or 7 of these. There's your standard pathogenic zombies. Those are the
hmm
ones that are created after you've been infected by a virus or bacteria or some other form of contagion.
Okay.
Old
Makes
news.
sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then there's radiation zombies. These are created
Ooh.
after you've been infected by extreme dosage of electromagnetic or particle radiation.
Yeah. And they spread the contamination and the contamination. It's like dual contamination.
What, the radiation zombies?
Well, radiation poisoning and a zombie
Oh,
virus, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happened in Fear the Walking Dead, one of the seasons. There was a nuclear bomb went off or whatever. So those zombies,
Oh,
they were highly radioactive and they were zombies. So you couldn't like, stab them up close and get their blood on
yeah.
you because their blood was highly radiated or something.
Wow. Oh, so you're
Hashtag
double
science. I
fucked.
don't know if that's, I don't know if that's how that would really go, but anyway, sorry.
Well, it's official. It's in this government document.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The third one are evil magic zombies. These are zombies that are created via some form of occult experimentation or what
Oh, that
otherwise is referred
that
to as
makes
evil
sense.
magic.
So that's more like necromancy, I think. But they're zombies, right? Bring back from the dead.
Mhm.
Okay, cool,
Mhm.
cool. So those
You
aren't
got
people
it.
necessarily bitten. They're like brought up post death.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yeah. Got to be prepared for any situation.
that's true.
And then we have space zombies or SZs. These are zombies that originate from space or created by toxic contamination of the earth from something from space.
Okay, so the
Um,
toxic contamination, I think that's similar to pathogenic, right? So some sort of microorganism that comes down and infects us, right? That's believable. Or there are other entities out in space. Um, that have some sort of zombie-like characters. It's like Marvel What If? What if they were all what if the
mhm.
superheroes were zombies, but from space? Like, we don't know. Like there could be some sort of like I don't know if they would be by definition zombies, but if they met certain characteristics of being flesh eating and like, human like or animal like figures, I could see it. I could see it. Also, Shelly just brought up a good point. I have, a bit of a crystal collection and Moldavite
Mm.
comes from space.
Mm.
But I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to eat it. That's probably why, because it probably turns you to zombie. It's also green, which is very zombie-like in nature. So maybe I will throw that away. It's also expensive, so I'm not throwing it away. Anyway,
I'm gonna crush up the moldavite and create a little powder and just sprinkle it into your supper when we get together for Sunday supper and see what happens. See if it turns you
yeah,
into a
sounds
zombie.
great. I'm gonna
And
swap
then
our
we'll
plates.
test the theories of how all
Okay.
of us would respond to.
Okay, first of all, Sam, let's be a team here. Shelly's logged in as a producer. You and I are here hosting the show. If we're gonna do a blind taste test of Moldavite, see what happens, it should obviously go in Zach's food.
I mean, you're right. That's
Yeah.
true. He'd
Okay.
probably be able to handle the levels of radiation more than any of us.
That's true. He is quite giant. Also, he won't hear about this until after we've already eaten the dinner. So, surprise. Anyway.
Surprise, you're a
Yeah.
zombie. Come bite me. Okay, wait.
Okay.
There's more. There's more zombie types I got to tell you about. Let's see. I'm gonna
Okay.
skip a
Okay.
couple of these. There's a weaponized zombies. There's symbiont induced zombies, which I guess is like, uh, what is it? Venom?
Yeah, it's
What's
like
the
Venom.
yeah,
Like a
a
Venom zombie,
symbiote.
yeah.
But now
Something
this
that
is
would, that would collaborate with our DNA to become something different or
kind of
something.
partially take over. Then there's vegetarian zombies. Vegetarian zombies
This
are
is still in
zombie
the
life.
DoD document, by the way?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is all still
Okay,
DoD. I didn't write
nice.
any of this. But this is what the document says about vegetarian zombies. They pose no direct threat to humans because they only eat plant life.
But they would wipe out our vegetation.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
They would
common sense
consume
makes
all
sense to
plant
me.
life. Yeah.
And
They can
so
cause
yeah,
massive deforestation or elimination of basic food crops essential to humans.
yeah, and so there's, like, secondary, tertiary effects, yeah.
Yes. This is what the document says about that. Carnivorous zombies commonly groan the word brains.
Right.
Vegetarian zombies will groan the word grains.
Okay, that did not come from the document, you made that up.
No, that is, I swear to you, that is in the document. I will take a
Okay,
screenshot and send it to you.
okay, that's ridiculous. I wanna know who wrote this. Anyway, moving on.
The last type of zombie is chicken zombies, which sounds ridiculous, but this is an actual proven class of zombie that exists. So, chicken zombies comes from when old hens that can no longer lay eggs. Wow,
Yeah,
sexist. Are euthanized by poultry farmers. They use carbon monoxide, but if they
okay.
don't do it properly, the chicken might not. It might, they think it's dead. It's like a being buried alive, but they don't actually
Oh,
bury it. They just throw them into a pile of decomposing hens. But then
right.
the ones that didn't fully actually die will come alive. They come back. They wake up and they will run out of the pile of decomposing hens, and so they're like little chicken zombies.
Chicken zombies.
And
Oh,
those
man.
then get selected to be turned into nuggets and sent to McDonald's.
That actually makes sense because there is something a little, like, decomposey about, McDonald's chicken nuggets.
And
Still dipping them in the sauce, still gonna nom nom, but, zombie
that
nugs.
could be
That's what
what
they should call them.
initiates
Around Halloween, they should, like, buy 12 zombie nugs for 1.99.
zombie nuggets. Well, we got to be careful because that could initiate, a mass human zombie situation. So
Yeah, that was a
better
good
watch
nugget of
out.
information you just gave.
That was good. That was good. Let's
Thanks,
keep riding this
thanks.
train. Um, okay, wait. Before we move on to choose the next movie, there's
Okay,
one more little nugget of history that I wanted to share with you.
okay.
Um, so this is the first movie that we watched that's a zombie movie, and I was curious after watching it to do a little bit of research to understand where where the concept of zombies originated from. You've
Mhm.
probably seen Night of the Living Dead, right?
Yeah, a long time ago, but yeah, it's like the classic.
That's the classic. It's like from what, the 60s or early 70s,
Something like
maybe.
that. Yeah.
So that is the movie that really introduced zombies as we think of them today into like Hollywood.
Mhm.
But the concept of a zombie actually, or as a reanimated corpse, comes from centuries ago. It goes back to the 16th, 17th century in Haiti, and all of this comes from an article in the Atlantic that's titled "The Tragic Forgotten History of Zombies."
Oh,
Hang on, I'll
weird.
give you the author's name, Mike Mariani. And in it, he talks about African slaves in Haiti who believed that when they died, they would go back to their homeland in Africa, in Guinea, to live a free afterlife.
Okay.
And their belief was that, they were living in these terrible, horrific conditions and might contemplate, getting out of this scenario by just taking your own life. But they believed that suicide would condemn you to an afterlife trapped at the plantation and that you'd live the rest of your afterlife as a slave. So it's this idea that they didn't have ownership over their own bodies, and the worst possible outcome would be to then spend their afterlife still not having ownership over their
Oh,
bodies,
wow.
basically serving as zombie slaves.
That's crazy.
Um, yeah, there was also the belief that sorcerers could reanimate dead slaves and put them to work. And so, this idea of being reanimated and living, or not living, but having this afterlife, where you're just a zombie, originated in plantations in Haiti by African slaves. And so that history was kind of lost when we had, the Hollywood version that we see today
Right.
in
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
But it was really interesting to read about the roots of, where the concept of zombies come from.
That's interesting. When did that article come out? I'm
That
just curious,
was
like, when from just a random, like, like, editorial standpoint, what, like, like, I think I'm gonna do this piece on zombie history.
this was 2015.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, who knows what went into the thought process, but I talk about The Walking Dead a lot, but I think The Walking Dead kind of reanimated people's interest in zombies, even though a lot of
Yeah.
people, are mad at the last, 5 or whatever seasons of it. But I think it
Oh,
became worldly popular. And they're still making shows in different spin-offs. And so I think so it's interesting in 2015, right? So about 7 years ago, that was a few seasons in. I think zombies were bigger. Train to Busan was a zombie movie, hadn't come out yet, but I think that there was a time. It's the same time when I was stocking up on machetes and such that the world, like, zombies were popular. And so I think it's interesting that around that time, in that time frame somewhere, that the Atlantic did this article on, like, I wonder where this comes from.
yeah.
Um, and of course, it has, like, a very eerie, very interesting history. I wish we could ask, like, someone like George A. Romero if how much of that like, where did he, it's like when we did Nightmare on Elm Street, and you talked about Wes Craven and how he kind of pulled in these pieces and put it together into this story.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was known by, George A. Romero, or if it was just like an inkling of a situation that he then incorporated into some of the original zombie movies that then over time just, became what we know today. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes you think about, like, it's kind of like the dilemma in the train car of, like, what's worse, living with these shitty people, or being a zombie, and what comes after the infection, what comes after your
Yeah.
death, what does afterlife look like, and,
I
yeah, I
think
don't
that
know, it's
that is
kind
a
of a
pretty yeah, it's a pretty common thought point on some of the bigger zombie stories. I think, movies that have sequels or TV shows that go for multiple seasons, they tap into that, right? Like
yeah,
like, long after the zombie apocalypse where people are living with zombies, there's that I don't want to be that. Don't let me become that, right? So I've been bitten, kill me before I become that
yeah,
because I don't want to be that's not how I want my body to be for the rest of eternity or until
I'd rather be dead.
yeah,
Yeah, like
then
dead, like
undead.
real dead. Yeah,
Real dead versus undead.
yeah, yeah. So that's it. That's all we got. Train to Busan. We have arrived at our final destination.
Ding, ding, ding. You have arrived at your final destination. Please grab your bags and please throw away your trash. Leaving trash under the seats is rude to the people that work on the train. And if you leave your trash anymore, then you will get bitten by a zombie and
And that is
die.
the end of you. And then you can join the zombie cape.
And then you can join the zombie cake. What's a
Cape.
zombie
You remember
cake?
the zombie cape?
Yeah, no, I just
Oh, oh, oh. You were
although
just messing with me.
although a zombie cake would be delicious, like red frosting, like like make little, like, teeth out of marshmallows, so it's like, like Groot. Nope, that's gross.
A
Okay.
little bit of
Uh
moldavite sprinkled on top.
yeah, yeah, a little bit of Moldavite, a little bit of, fake teeth, some gross, maybe it's green cake with red frosting. Anyway, okay, we're done. So now we're gonna move on to the super duper exciting. I like the word super duper. I used it 5 times at the beginning of the episode. Moving on to the next part, where Sam is gonna pick what we're gonna watch next week.
Wait,
So
wait.
what? What?
What about the rating?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. It's because it's 7 in the morning. I'm just kidding. It's not really. Um, just kidding. Sam, before we move on to the next episode, what is your rating of this movie on the
We can keep
Sam
this
Scary
brief.
Meter?
We can keep this brief. I'm gonna say it was not super scary. It was sweet, and I
Yep.
would 1,000% recommend it. But it didn't get me scared.
Yep.
So I'd give it a pretty low, like a 1 or a 2 on the scary meter.
Really? One or two? Which one is it? One or two?
Oh boy.
So think of yourself in the moment, in the
Yeah.
dark. Zombies are chasing after the people, like when they're running to get to the train, and the zombies are there, and they bite some of them, they take them down. What does that bring out?
I'll give it a 2 because there
Okay.
were some times where somebody was like I was, like, nervous if they were gonna get bit, and then they did get bit.
Right.
Like, Mr. Beefy Man, I was like, "No, he got bit," and I was, like,
Yeah.
rooting for him.
Hmm.
So there was a few moments of intensity where I didn't want the bite to happen, but there was no, like I didn't, I don't know, I didn't feel like I was
Yeah.
scared. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was scared for the characters, I wasn't scared for myself, and there weren't very many I never jumped, there
Yeah.
weren't any, like, big jump scares, there wasn't any, like, psychological fear necessarily or emotional fear, which we've talked about with previous episodes, how that can
Yeah.
be really pulls on those heartstrings. Um, but, so it's a low scary ranking, but that's not a bad thing, that's
Yeah.
just is what it is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I remember when I finished watching the movie this time around, I was like, not very scary. Good movie for everything that we talked about. Good
Yeah,
movie. I would even say probably great movie, right? But as far as scary, the zombies really didn't bring a lot of like creepiness or like
yeah. There
feeling to
wasn't
it.
much gore.
And there wasn't much gore either.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
so there
very
wasn't a lot of
gory.
gore, and while it seemed like they sped up the zombies running, and there was a bit of intensity to it, you're scared for the characters a little bit. Yeah, it definitely didn't give me those feelings of scare. So I
Yeah,
concur.
yeah. Okay,
Two
great.
seems about right.
Yeah.
Now on to the next episode. Um, so we've kind of waffled back and forth. This last episode, you watched kind of a recent movie. Before that, you watched a super old movie. Before that, we watched a kind of a recent movie. I don't think I have those in order. Anyway, so we're gonna go back to some classics for the next episode.
Okay, alright.
Just some. This is almost like my vintage horror, but not anyway, but similar. So the theme for today's selection is going to be classic Stephen King movies.
Ooh, Stephen King.
Yeah, and
Okay,
so we
great.
obviously watched The Shining, which I think Stephen King would probably say is not his movie. It's based off his book,
That's
but
right.
we're gonna go back and we're gonna look at some old memorable from my childhood Stephen King movies, and I polled my mom on this one to ask her what she thought was at the top of the list. And frankly, I just want to know whichever one we pick, if it holds up. Does it give you any, feelings of fear? Maybe over the course of a million years, because some of these are pretty old, really more like 30+ years. Are they even scary anymore? Are they entertainment? Are they entertaining? So that's where we're at. So Stephen King movies. The first one on the list is It. The
What
movie
is
is
it?
It. Yeah, it's
What?
like yeah, I knew this was gonna
What?
happen.
It's
IT,
like
It.
IT,
Now
the IT department?
yeah,
Sorry,
information
I'm sorry, I'm
technology.
done, I'm
It's
done, I'm
it's
done.
a it's a great movie about computer systems that take over and eat their operators, the
It's like
keyboards.
Megan.
No, it's like Megan, but less sophisticated. So the movie It. So for those Team Chris's out there, you probably know that It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, more recently, they did a remake. A remake. They did a remake with Bill Skarsgård. I saw those movies, but we're talking about the classic It that was actually released as a miniseries originally um, back in 1990. So I saw it as a kid, pretty creepy. It stars Tim Curry, Jonathan Brandis, and Seth Green, like a young Seth Green, because this is 1990. And here is the rather short but descriptive synopsis. 7 preteen outcasts fight an evil demon that poses as a child killing clown. 30 years later, they reunite to stop the demon once and for all when it returns to their hometown. End of synopsis, but number one, before you say anything, did they know that synopsis rhymed? Hmm. Anyway,
Wait, do it again. It was so short, I missed the rhyme.
clown and hometown rhyme. So 7 outcasts fight a demon posing as a clown. 30 years later, they reunite when it returns to their hometown. See, it rhymes.
Mm.
Yeah. I feel
That
like I could write
music
a whole rap
just
about this movie, but I'm not going to do it.
oh, if we pick this one and you do the synopsis in 2 minutes or less, you have to rap the entire synopsis.
Cool. Good thing that it's your turn next week.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll do it
Yeah.
and try not to get canceled. Well, let's see. Thinking about Train to Busan, I love hearing that they band together. They form their little survival team and they
Mhm.
fight. And it seems like the synopsis just gave away the ending of it said they got the clown out of town or kicked him
Well, it
out of
says it
uh,
it returns 30 years later, and they reunite to stop the demon, yeah.
to stop
This is
they
definitely
reunite
it yeah,
with the mission of stopping the demon. We don't know if they
correct,
actually do stop the
correct.
demon clown or not. Okay.
And for a little bit of background, not to give too much away, but like the more recent movies, chapter 1 and chapter 2, the first chapter is them as kids, the latter chapter is them as adults. This was all big one mini series, so you get both
Mm,
all in one.
mhm.
So yeah,
Now, do you have a clown phobia?
not really, not really. If I did, it would probably be Tim Curry dressed as this evil demon clown.
Mm, yeah,
But
that's true.
or at least from my
Um,
childhood, it was pretty creepy.
I basically am a clown, so I don't know.
That's true.
Clowns don't don't really scare me. I know there's people that
Yeah,
are like mortified of
yeah.
clowns, but
People do
I'm
have a
like,
clown fear.
clowns are just.
Well, it's because you see one in the mirror every day.
I see one every time I step out of the
Yeah,
shower and look in the mirror, standing
I'd be
behind
scared.
me. No, I mean clowns are. Why do clowns exist? To make people laugh.
That's true.
So
They have kind of a
they.
creepiness about them, though, right? Like they could be, and also like people play on that fear and make creepy clown movies. We talked about it in an earlier episode about a movie about like people that escaped from mental institution, and then I was gonna put it on one of the lists, but I couldn't figure out how to stream it that I watched when I was a kid. So there's
Oh,
people like to play on it. I don't know why.
yeah.
I'm not scared of clowns either, but I could see why someone would find them kind of creepy.
Sure, sure. It's like
Yeah,
dolls. Dolls aren't meant to be creepy, but they just are.
they just are. They
Fucking
just are.
dolls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of scary dolls, we should add to the list the Barbie movie because that's coming up pretty soon, and I bet that's
Mm,
probably scary.
I'll put that
Think
yeah,
about it. Okay,
I'll
so
think
what's
about it.
what's number 2? It is number
Okay.
1. What's number 2?
Number 2 is called Pet Cemetery. Uh,
Ooh.
spelled Sematary, not, with the C. Uh, Pet Cemetery came out in 1989. It stars Dale Midkiff, Fred Gwynn, and Denise Crosby. And here is what this movie's about. Dr. Lewis Creed moves his family to Maine, where he meets a friendly local named Judd Crandall. After the Creed's cat is accidentally killed, Crandall advises Lewis to bury it in the ground near the old pet cemetery. The cat returns to life. His personality changed for the worse. When Lewis's son, Gage, dies tragically, Lewis decides to bury the boy's body in the same ground, despite the warnings of Crandall and Lewis's visions of a deceased patient. I think that gave away a little bit too much, but I didn't read it before reading it to you. But it's fine. There's more. There's more. There's more. But
Sure.
you get the yeah. But that gave you more obviously than the previous one.
Hmm. So the synopsis mentions a cat. Do we know
Yeah.
if there's any dogs in this movie?
No, there's not. There is a
Oh,
Stephen King
okay.
movie about a rabid dog. That's not on this list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't really give you the rundown of the first one. We know it's about childhood friends that learn. It's a coming of age story as they grow older and they learn how to band together to fight their fear, kind of like you doing this podcast. And then 30 years later, some of their fears creep up. They get some therapy. They fight that fear again,
Yeah.
and they all live happily ever after. This movie, it's really that's pretty common in horror movies, right? Family moves to a new town. No one in the town knows them. They make friends with their neighbors, but then, there's always some sort of conflict. As we all know, our pets die. So, oh, it's tragic. The cat dies. What do I do about it? Well, let's bury it in Pet Cemetery. But in this case, oh, well, we didn't have to buy another cat because it came back. Uh, and they they get to enjoy their cat again with a whole new personality. So it's like they bought a different cat and now it's like they have two pets.
The
And then the son
cat
dies and some other stuff happens, but that takes away from the joyous part of the story.
I mean, we all know cats have 9 lives.
That's true. I
I'm
mean,
okay with
they didn't know
zombie
that.
cats.
Yeah, it is kind of zombie like this similar. The cat doesn't eat brains.
Oh, well, it sounds like the cat comes back with a messed up personality, but that's just kinda cats in general, right?
Well, but also if you died and then you were buried and came back, wouldn't you be a little grumpy at first? Like you're dirty, like your muscles hurt, you've been in the ground, you had to dig your way out. Like I'd be a little grumpy too.
I'd probably be hangry. I'd probably be like, "Give me a snack."
Exactly. You need a little
and
bit
they
of
try to eat
therapy,
your
a
brain.
little bit of zombie nugs, and then you'd be golden. And that's basically what
Yeah.
happens. Spoiler alert, that's how this movie ends. They just get them a
Oh,
good meal, and then
get them a
everything's fine.
Snickers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say that if there were like dogs that are sick and dying or get put down or something, then I don't know if I'd be able to handle it. It'd be too sad. I'd be really
Oh, yeah,
devastated.
but the part of the synopsis where the little boy dies tragically, that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Wait, oh, is it a child?
I don't know.
Oh.
Guess you'll have to
So
watch and find
again,
out.
I you know this because we talked about it in The Shining and some other movies,
You
and
have the thing about
actually
the
Train to
kids.
Busan too. When we first meet the daughter, my
Yeah.
first thought is, I don't want the
She's
daughter
gonna
to turn into
die.
a zombie.
Yeah. I know.
It's too
You
sad.
always lean
It's
that
like
way.
that scene in The Last of Us when the young kid becomes a
Mhm.
zombie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Okay, you're right.
Yep.
I don't want the child to die.
But
But
if you're trying to chase the fear, maybe you're trying to find no, don't go on a path where you're looking for child death in movies because that's probably not a healthy path.
yeah.
On to the third movie.
What's the third one? Yeah.
Okay, so the third movie is Carrie. Came out in
Mm.
1976. I think it was the first Stephen King based movie ever released, which is why I mean it came out in
Oh.
76. This would be the oldest movie if you pick this that we watched, right? Because it came out before The Shining. Um, Stars Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie. And here is what Carrie is about. Have you ever heard of Carrie?
Oh, yes. In
Okay.
fact,
I
there's
was gonna say, like, who hasn't?
there was something we watched recently that had some cultural that had a reference to Carrie, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe on 30 Rock or something, but I'll try and remember.
I'm not trying to steer, but like if you pick this movie and you do the research afterwards, like the number of cultural references, it's like The Shining, right? Like it's all over the place, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Anyway, I digress. Here is what Carrie's about. Withdrawn and sensitive teen, Carrie White faces taunting from classmates at school and abuse from her fanatically pious mother at home. When strange occurrences start happening around Carrie, she begins to suspect that she has supernatural powers. Invited to the prom by an empathetic Tommy Ross, Carrie tries to let her guard down, but things eventually take a dark and violent turn. It's basically a Marvel origin story. She's basically kind of like Scarlet Witch. She
Oh,
learns she has
okay.
superpowers. So if you like a Marvel movie, then this is a 1976 version with murder and death and stuff.
So this is one where, the only thing that I know about Carrie is
Hmm.
that gets bullied, right? She is the
Yeah.
product of bullying?
She is. And a horrible home situation.
Yeah. Well, as we know, the things that get me, that I find the scariest, are more like the emotional, psychological situations, more so than like paranormal. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if Carrie is something uh that would get me more scared.
Yeah.
Lem-
And well, it'll be interesting because it's 45 years old.
oh
So
wow.
so it's older than I am, which not every movie that we've most of the movies that we've talked about have not been older than me. But yeah, but will it, bring that level of scare? But it's definitely a classic. I think all three of these are classics. I think you're not going to find a 10 on this list. It's just not going to happen. But on your journey to scary movies, these are some pretty quintessential movies
Yeah.
that should be on at some point your watch list, because
Yeah. Yeah. I
next
think that's a
time that
good
we're at
point.
like a scary movie, convention and people find out you haven't seen it or Pet Cemetery, you're going to get kicked out probably.
What's the name of our convention that we're gonna have? The Necronomicon?
The Necronomicon.
No, Necronomicon? Anyway,
Yeah.
here's a question. Do you know Okay, we watched
Mm,
The Shining. We
yep.
know we talked about how Stephen King did not like the movie adaptation of his book. He actively was like, "This is not a good adaptation." Do you know how he felt about these 3? Is there, because I wanna kinda honor Stephen King, I'd love to pick one that he actually liked the adaptation of. Do you happen to know if there's how he felt about each of these 3?
Um, do I happen to know? I do not, but Google does. So he liked Carrie.
He liked Ca okay.
Yep, he liked Carrie. He liked some other ones that aren't on this list. According to an article from the UK, they are not on the list of the ones that he hates the most. We know he didn't like The
Okay.
Shining. There's some other ones he definitely didn't like. These are not on that list. So,
Okay.
they're
Okay.
moderately not hated.
You know what we should do? We should get a Megan doll to just sit with us while we record, so that we can ask her these types of questions and she can just feed us the answers so that you don't have to Google anything anymore.
Should we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll think about it. As long as the Megan doll is sitting on your side of the camera.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll
Cool.
get her to protect me. Okay. I have a decision. Are you ready for
Thank
it?
goodness.
I'm gonna pick Carrie. I'm gonna
Okay.
pick Carrie because you said it was the first one that was a Stephen King
Yeah.
book turned into a movie. We know that you said he liked it.
Yep.
Carrie, I mean, not it. We're talking about Carrie. And it, like you said, it's one of those things that's like a cultural icon. It's referenced in other places. I feel like this is part of my education. I gotta experience the things that everybody has seen and that everybody knows about, and that are, has references to other things. And I'm just curious about what her abilities are that she gets, and then how that turns into, like, is she going to be the hero? Is she going to be the villain? Is what
Yeah, that's the question.
What's the situation? So that's what I want to watch.
Cool. Well, Carrie it is. That
Carrie
will
it
be
is.
the oldest movie we've watched on this podcast to date.
Oh, a milestone.
Yeah, and you're about to turn 23, so the movie is like twice as old as you.
Folks, that is not true. I'm a little bit younger than that. Just kidding.
Lies. Okay, so we're gonna watch Carrie, and Sam will learn all about it. It's gonna be fun. Sam, is gonna he's gonna be Team Carrie and go stop the bullies. It's gonna be exciting. I'm actually really excited. I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid, so it's gonna be a good time. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Scary Movie Fright Night. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of the previous episodes, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify, or wherever you're listening from. Your support does actually help us reach more listeners and bring you more engaging content. Don't forget to follow us so you never miss an episode. Hopefully you're already following, and that's why you're here, is because you got a notification saying, come watch. For this week, Team Chris, what is your favorite Stephen King movie or book? Or which one, or any variation in between? Let us know. Put it in the review and let us know what your favorite one was. Sam, what do you got for your team today?
Ooh, what's a fun question? Tell us, okay, we talked about all the different types of zombies. If you got turned into a zombie, what kind of zombie would you be? What's your zombie diet? Are you a paleo zombie? Are you a vegetarian zombie? Are you a chicken zombie? That's not what chicken zombies are, but it's fine. Tell us what kind of zombie diet you subscribe to.
My zombie diet is breakfast.
I'd probably be a French fry zombie.
Ooh, French fry zombie. That'd be like a good gamer tag. Man, I spent like 8 months trying to come up with a gamer tag, and French fry zombie never. Dang it. All right, friends. Until next time on Scary Movie Fright Night, see you when we see you in the next one time.
Bye, everybody. Carry on. John Travolta's in this movie.
What? No, he doesn't play Carrie.